The UE Starfall was not a beautiful ship. She was old, patched in dozens of places, and her engines made a sound that worried new crew members until they learned to ignore it. But she did her job. She patrolled the outer rim territories where human space met the unknown, and she had done so for 15 years without failing. Kang Taiho had served on the Starfall for 3 of those years. Before that, he had served on other ships, in other positions, always doing the same kind of work. He was a combat systems analyst. His job was to make sure the weapons worked, to check the targeting computers, to find problems before they became disasters. He was good at his job. But being good at something did not always mean people noticed. Taiho was 34 years old. He had been in the Navy for 12 years. He had never been promoted past warrant officer. This did not bother him as much as it probably should have. He did not care about titles or medals. He cared about doing his work correctly. He cared about the ship staying in one piece. He cared about the people on board going home alive. The crew called him the Ghost because he worked the night shift alone and rarely spoke to anyone. He would arrive at his station after most people went to sleep, run his diagnostics, check his systems, and leave before the morning shift arrived. Some crew members had served with him for months without ever having a real conversation with him. This was fine with Taiho. He was not unfriendly. He simply did not see the need for unnecessary words. Everything changed when Commander Beat Junho took command of the Starfall. Junho was young for a commander, only 31 years old. He had risen quickly through the ranks, impressing admirals with his efficiency reports and his promises of modernization. He believed strongly in new technology. He believed that artificial intelligence could do almost anything better than humans could. He believed that the old ways of doing things were holding the Navy back. On his first day aboard the Starfall, he called a meeting of all senior staff. Taiho was not senior staff, so he was not invited. But he heard about it later from Lieutenant Yoon Hana, one of the few people on the ship who actually talked to him. He wants to restructure everything, Hana told him in the mess hall, keeping her voice low. He says we have too many people doing jobs that the AI can handle. He wants a streamlined, efficient command. Taiho nodded slowly. He had seen commanders like this before. They came in with big ideas and bigger egos. Sometimes their ideas worked. Sometimes they did not. Either way, it was not his place to question them. He asked about you specifically, Hana added. This surprised Taiho. Me? He wanted to know why we still have a combat systems analyst when the targeting AI handles everything automatically. Hana looked uncomfortable. I tried to explain that you do more than that. You check the backup systems. You run manual diagnostics. You catch things the AI misses. What did he say? Hana did not answer right away. That told Taiho everything he needed to know. 3 days later, Taiho was called to the commander's ready room. The ready room was small but well organized. Commander Junho sat behind his desk, looking at something on his datapad. He did not look up when Taiho entered. He let Taiho stand at attention for nearly a full minute before acknowledging him. Warrant Officer Kang, Junho finally said. Sit down. Taiho sat. Junho studied him with the expression of a man looking at outdated equipment. I have been reviewing crew assignments since I took command. I am trying to understand why certain positions still exist when technology has made them unnecessary. Taiho said nothing. He knew where this was going. Your job, Junho continued, is to monitor combat systems, to run diagnostics, to check for errors. But we have an eye that does all of that. It does it faster than you can. It does it more accurately. It never gets tired. It never makes mistakes. The AI is very good, Taiho agreed. But it is not perfect. Last month, I found a calibration error in the port side cannons that the AI missed. The error was small, but in combat, it could have caused our shots to miss by several meters. Junho waved his hand dismissively. One small error in how many years? The AI catches 99% of problems. We do not need a human sitting there checking its work. With respect, Commander, that 1% could mean the difference between life and death. Junho's expression hardened. He did not like being challenged, even politely. I appreciate your dedication, Warrant Officer. But the Navy is changing. We cannot afford to keep positions just because they used to be important. I am reassigning you to cargo inventory until your transfer orders come through. You are no longer needed here. The words hung in the air. You are no longer needed. Taiho had expected this moment since he first heard about the new commander. He had prepared himself for it. But somehow, hearing it said out loud still hurt more than he expected. Yes, Commander, he said quietly. I understand. He stood, saluted, and left the ready room without another word. That evening, Taiho packed up his station. He removed his personal diagnostic tools, the ones he had bought with his own money because the Navy-issued ones were not good enough. He took down the small photo of his parents that he kept in the corner of his console. He deleted his personal notes from the system and logged out for the last time. Nobody came to say goodbye. Most people on the ship did not even know he was being reassigned. And those who did probably thought the commander was right. Why did they need a human doing a job that a machine could do better? Taiho reported to the cargo bay and began counting crates. For 2 days, he did his new job without complaint. He cataloged supplies. He checked inventory numbers. He made sure everything was in its proper place. It was boring work, but Taiho did not mind boring work. He had always been patient. On the third night, something happened. Taiho could not sleep. This was not unusual. He had always been a poor sleeper, his mind too active to shut down easily. So he went to the cargo bay, thinking he might as well work if he could not rest. He had brought his personal datapad with him. This was against regulations. Crew members were not supposed to access ship systems from personal devices. But Taiho had been doing it for years, quietly running his own diagnostics even when it was not his job. Old habits died hard. He connected to the ship's network and began running checks. Just simple things. Power distribution, engine efficiency, navigation systems. That was when he found it. Buried deep in the navigation AIS code, there was a subroutine he did not recognize. It was hidden well, designed to look like standard background processing. But Taiho had been looking at code for 12 years. He knew what normal looked like. And this was not normal. He studied it for over an hour, trying to understand what it did. The code was complex, written by someone very skilled. But eventually, Taiho figured it out. It was a sabotage program. A sleeper subroutine that would activate under certain conditions and take control of the navigation system. It could drop the ship out of faster than light travel at any location. It could drop the ship at any location. It could override the pilot's commands. Someone had infected the Starfall's AI with a weapon. Taiho stared at his datapad, his heart beating faster than it had in years. He should report this immediately. He should wake the commander and show him what he had found. But who would believe him? He was the ghost, the man who had just been told he was no longer needed. He had accessed the ship's systems illegally using a personal device. Junho would probably think Taiho had planted the code himself, trying to make himself seem important again. So Taiho made a note of what he had found. He saved all the evidence to his personal datapad. And he waited. He did not have to wait long. The Velik Nebula was one of the most beautiful sights in human space. Massive clouds of purple and gold gas stretched across millions of kilometers, lit from within by young stars still being born. Pilots loved flying near it. Scientists studied it constantly. But soldiers knew the truth about the Velik Nebula. It was a perfect place for an ambush. The gas clouds interfered with long-range sensors. Ships could hide inside the nebula's edges, invisible until they were close enough to attack. The Navy had lost vessels here before, surprised by enemies who used the nebula as a weapon. This was why Taiho felt uneasy when the Starfall changed course toward the nebula. He was in the cargo bay, as usual, counting supplies that did not need counting. But he had been watching the ship's movements on his datapad, tracking their course across the star map. 3 days ago, they had been heading towards Station Kappa, a routine patrol stop. Now they were moving in a completely different direction. No announcement had been made. No explanation given to the crew. Taiho thought about the sabotage code he had found, the hidden subroutine designed to take control of navigation. His stomach tightened. He considered going to Commander Junho again. But what would he say? That he had been illegally monitoring ship systems? That he thought the AI was leading them into a trap? Junho already thought he was useless. This would only make things worse. So Taiho did the only thing he could do. He prepared. There was a place on the Starfall that almost nobody knew about. Deep in the ship's lower sections, behind a maintenance hatch that had not been opened in years. There was a room called Auxiliary Station 7. It was a backup combat control center, built into the original design of the ship decades ago. Modern vessels did not have rooms like this anymore. Everything was controlled through the main AI now. But the Starfall was old, and Auxiliary Station 7 still existed. Taiho had found it during his second month on the ship, while exploring the maintenance corridors during his sleepless nights. The systems were outdated, but functional. The consoles were dusty, but intact. With some work, it could be brought back online. Over the past 3 days, while everyone thought he was counting crates, Taiho had been quietly preparing Auxiliary Station 7. He had cleaned the consoles. He had run power lines from the backup generators. He had tested the connections to the weapon systems, making sure he could take manual control if needed. He hoped he was wrong. He hoped the ship's course change was just a navigation error or a last-minute order from Fleet Command. He hoped he was being paranoid. But he did not stop preparing. On the 4th day, at exactly 0347 hours, Taiho was awakened by the ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel. This was wrong. They were not supposed to arrive anywhere for another 6 hours. An unscheduled exit from FTL meant something had gone badly wrong. Taiho grabbed his datapad and ran. He reached the main corridor just as the alarms began. Red lights flashed. The ship shuddered. Through the walls, he could hear the distant thunder of weapons fire, but it was not their weapons. Someone was shooting at them. Crew members rushed past him, heading to their battle stations. Nobody paid attention to the cargo worker running in the wrong direction. They had bigger problems. Taiho reached the maintenance hatch and pulled it open. The corridor beyond was dark, lit only by emergency lights. He ran through it, his breath loud in his ears, until he reached Auxiliary Station 7. The room came to life as he entered. Old screens flickered on, showing him what was happening outside the ship. 3 vessels. Helix Dominion design, their hulls painted with the enemy's crimson symbols. They had been waiting inside the nebula, hidden by the gas clouds, exactly where the sabotage navigation AI had brought the Starfall. It was a perfect trap. On the main bridge, Taiho knew Commander Junho would be trying to fight back. But the combat AI would be malfunctioning. Just like the navigation AI, the weapons would not lock onto targets. The shields would cycle incorrectly, leaving gaps in the defense. The sabotage code had been designed to cripple the entire ship at the worst possible moment. Taiho sat down at the manual control console. His hands were steady as he began entering commands. The systems in Auxiliary Station 7 were not connected to the main AI. They were completely separate, designed in an era when humans did not trust machines with everything. They were old. They were slow. But they worked. Taiho bypassed the corrupted targeting computer entirely. He took direct control of the forward cannons, aiming them himself, using nothing but his eyes and his training. The targeting display showed him the lead Dominion ship, its engines glowing blue as it maneuvered for another attack run. He fired. The console shook as the cannons released their energy. Taiho watched on the screen as his shots crossed the darkness between ships. 3 beams of light, perfectly aimed, struck the Dominion vessel's engine array. The enemy ship shuddered. Fire erupted from its rear section. It began to spin, its main engines dead, no longer a threat. Taiho did not celebrate. He was already aiming at the second ship. On the bridge of the Starfall, Lieutenant Yun Hana stared at her tactical display in disbelief. A moment ago, their weapons had been useless, refusing to lock onto targets, firing randomly into empty space. Now the forward cannons were working perfectly, operated by someone or something she could not identify. "The weapons are firing," she reported, her voice shaking slightly. "Someone has manual control." Commander Junho was gripping the arms of his command chair, his face pale. The battle was not going the way he had expected. Nothing was going the way he expected. Who has control? Hana checked the system logs, searching for the source of the commands. What she found made her stop breathing for a moment. "Warrant Officer Kang," she said quietly. "He is in Auxiliary Station 7. "What?" Junho's voice cracked. "What is Auxiliary Station 7? Nobody answered him. The young ensign at navigation, Park Doyen, was too busy trying to restore control of their course. The other officers were focused on damage reports and shield management. Nobody had time to explain that the man Junho had dismissed as useless was now the only thing keeping them alive. In his hidden room, Taiho continued to fight. The second Dominion ship exploded as his shots found its weapons array. The third ship, seeing what had happened to its companions, began to turn away. Taiho pursued it with his targeting, trying to disable its engines before it could escape. But the third ship was faster. It had seen enough. The Dominion captain had come expecting an easy victory, a disabled ship full of helpless humans. Instead, they had lost 2 vessels in minutes to an enemy that should not have been able to fight back. The third ship jumped to FTL speed and vanished into the stars. Taiho sat back in his chair. His hands were trembling now. The adrenaline that had kept him steady during the fight was fading, leaving behind exhaustion and relief. Around him, the old consoles hummed quietly, still functional after all these years. They had done their job, and so had he. He did not leave Auxiliary Station 7 immediately. Instead, he connected his datapad to the station's computers and began recording everything. The evidence of the sabotage. The proof that the navigation AI had been corrupted. The logs showing that the main combat systems had been deliberately disabled. Someone had tried to kill everyone on this ship, and Taiho intended to find out who. 20 minutes later, the hatch to Auxiliary Station 7 opened. Lieutenant Hana stood in the doorway, her uniform disheveled, her eyes wide. "Taiho," she said softly. "What did you do?" He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "My job," he said simply. "Just like I always have." Behind Hana, in the corridor, he could see other crew members gathering. They were looking at him differently now. Not as the ghost, not as the man who counted crates. They were looking at him as if seeing him for the first time. But Taiho was not thinking about them. He was thinking about the sabotage code still buried in the ship's systems. He was thinking about the enemy ships that had known exactly where to wait. He was thinking about the questions that needed answers. Someone had betrayed them. Someone had almost killed them all. And someone was going to answer for it. The Starfall drifted through space, wounded but alive. Smoke still leaked from damaged sections. Emergency repair teams worked without rest, sealing holes and restoring systems. The crew moved through the corridors with the tired eyes of people who had almost died. Commander Junho had not left the bridge since the battle. He sat in his command chair, staring at nothing, his earlier confidence completely gone. The attack had exposed everything he did not want to see. His modern, efficient ship had almost become a grave. His trusted AI systems had tried to kill them all. And the man he had dismissed as useless had saved everyone. He had not spoken to Taiho since the battle. He did not know what to say. 3 days after the ambush, sensors detected a ship approaching. The Starfall's crew prepared for another fight, their nerves already stretched thin. But this time, the approaching vessel was friendly. It was the UES Eternal Dawn, a fleet command carrier. One of the largest ships in human space. It carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. And it had come specifically for them. Junho watched the carrier on his screen as it drew closer. This was unusual. Fleet Command did not send carriers to rescue damaged patrol vessels. They sent repair ships. They sent medical frigates. They did not send their most powerful weapons. Something else was happening here. The communication officer turned in her seat. "Commander, the carrier is hailing us. Admiral Shin Yunji wishes to come aboard." Junho felt his stomach drop. Admiral Shin was a legend in the Navy. She had commanded fleets during the First Contact Wars, when humanity first encountered hostile alien species. She had won battles that should have been impossible. She answered directly to the highest levels of Fleet Command. And she was coming to his damaged patrol ship personally. "Tell her she is welcome," Junho managed to say. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Admiral Shin arrived by shuttle within the hour. She was a small woman, 58 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that seemed to see through everything. She wore her uniform without decoration, despite having earned more medals than anyone in the current Navy. 2 officers accompanied her, one of them a quiet man in the black uniform of Fleet Intelligence. Junho met her at the shuttle bay, standing at perfect attention. He had rehearsed what he would say. He would explain the attack. He would describe the AI malfunction. He would present himself as a commander who had faced an impossible situation with courage and skill. But Admiral Shin did not give him the chance to speak. "Where is Warrant Officer Kang Taiho?" she asked before he could open his mouth. Junho blinked. Of all the questions he had expected, this was not one of them. "Warrant Officer Kang is..." He was reassigned to cargo duty. "He is probably in the..." "I did not ask for his job history," the Admiral interrupted. "I asked where he is." There was something in her voice that made Junho feel very small. He had spent his career impressing admirals with his reports and presentations. But this admiral was not impressed by anything he had done. "I will take you to him," Junho said quietly. They found Taiho in a small room near the cargo bay. He had converted it into a temporary workspace, filling it with displays showing code and system diagrams. He had been working almost without sleep since the battle, analyzing the sabotage program, trying to understand where it had come from. When Admiral Shin entered, Taiho stood immediately at attention. He looked tired. His uniform was wrinkled, but his eyes were sharp and alert. The Admiral studied him for a long moment without speaking. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Commander Junho shifted his weight from foot to foot, uncertain whether he should leave or stay. Finally, Admiral Shin spoke. "You manually engaged 3 enemy warships using a backup system that was officially decommissioned 8 years ago. You identified a sabotage subroutine 72 hours before it activated. You saved this ship and everyone on it." She paused. "And your commanding officer had you counting crates." Taiho did not respond to this. He knew that anything he said would only make Junho look worse, and despite everything, he took no pleasure in another man's humiliation. The Admiral seemed to appreciate his silence. She nodded slightly and continued. "Fleet Command has been tracking Helix Dominion infiltration of our AI systems for 8 months. In that time, we have lost 6 ships to ambush exactly like the one you survived. Every one of those ships had their navigation systems compromised. Every one of them was led into a trap and destroyed before they could fight back." She took a step closer to Taiho. "You were the first person to survive one of these attacks. More importantly, you are the first person to identify the sabotage before it activated. Do you understand what that means?" Taiho met her eyes. "It means the Dominion is killing our ships from the inside, and nobody has been able to stop them, until now." Admiral Shin gestured to the man in black standing behind her. "This is Commander No Kyung-soo, Fleet Intelligence. He has been leading our investigation into the Dominion infiltration." Kyung-soo stepped forward. He was a quiet man with a calm face that revealed nothing. When he spoke, his voice was soft but precise. "The sabotage code you found is exactly what we have been looking for. We knew the Dominion was compromising our systems, but we could never capture an intact sample. They designed it to delete itself after activation. Every ship that was attacked, the code was gone by the time we arrived. But the Starfall survived," Taiho said, understanding. "The code did not have time to erase itself, because you stopped it." Kyung-soo almost smiled. "You fought the battle manually, without relying on the compromised AI. The Dominion's program was designed to disable ships that depended on their computers. It had no answer for a human who still knew how to fight without them." Admiral Shin took over again. "Warrant Officer Kang, Fleet Command needs people like you. People who understand old systems. People who can operate without machines. People the enemy does not expect." She looked at Kyung-soo, who produced a datapad. "As of now, you are transferred to Fleet Intelligence. You will help us find out how the Dominion is infiltrating our ships, and you will help us stop them." Taiho looked at the transfer orders on the datapad. They were already signed by 3 admirals. This was not a request. This was a command decision made at the highest level. He thought about his life on the Starfall. The night shifts alone. The years of being ignored. The commander who had told him he was not needed. Then he thought about the 6 ships that had been destroyed. The crews that had died because no one saw the sabotage coming. The families who would never see their loved ones again. "I accept," he said. Admiral Shin nodded as if she had expected nothing else. "Good. Gather your belongings. You will transfer to the Eternal Dawn within the hour." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "One more thing, Warrant Officer. Commander Junho's report on the battle makes no mention of your actions. It describes the engagement as a successful defense using automated backup protocols. Is that accurate?" Taiho glanced at Junho, who stood frozen in the corner of the room. Their eyes met briefly. Junho looked away. "I could not say, Admiral," Taiho replied carefully. "I was only doing my job. How it gets written in reports is above my level." The Admiral smiled for the first time. It was a small smile, quick and sharp. "I see. Well, Fleet Command will be writing its own report on this incident. A complete one." She left the room, Kyung-soo following silently behind her. Junho remained for a moment longer. He seemed to be struggling to find words, to say something that would explain or justify or apologize. But in the end, he said nothing at all. He simply turned and walked away. Taiho watched him go without anger. He had seen men like Junho before. They were not evil, They were simply blind to anything that did not fit their image of how things should work. They trusted systems and procedures and technology because those things were predictable. Humans were not predictable. Humans were messy and complicated, and sometimes they surprised you. That was exactly why humans were still needed. Tai-Ho packed his few belongings into a small bag. The photo of his parents, his personal diagnostic tools, a few spare uniforms. His entire life fit into a single bag. It always had. As he left the Starfall for the last time, Lieutenant Hana was waiting at the shuttle bay. "I heard you're transferring to intelligence," she said quietly. "The whole crew is talking about it." Tai-Ho nodded. "Word travels fast. It does when you save everyone's lives." She hesitated, then extended her hand. "Thank you, Tai-Ho, for everything." He shook her hand. It was the first time in 3 years that anyone on the Starfall had touched him with any warmth. "Take care of the ship," he said, "and watch the AI systems carefully. Trust the machines, but verify everything. The old methods still work for a reason." Hana smiled. "I will remember." Tai-Ho boarded the shuttle and did not look back. 3 months changed everything. Tai-Ho was no longer the ghost. He was no longer the man who counted crates while the real work happened somewhere else. He had become something new, something he had never imagined for himself. He had become a hunter. The Silent Wind was a small ship, barely bigger than a shuttle, painted in colors that made it almost invisible against the blackness of space. It had no official designation. It did not appear in any fleet records. As far as the Navy was concerned, the Silent Wind did not exist. But the Helix Dominion had learned to fear it. Commander Kyung-Soo had given Tai-Ho a simple mission: find out how the Dominion was infiltrating human ships, trace the sabotage back to its source, and stop it. To accomplish this, Tai-Ho had been given something he never expected. He had been given a team. Specialist Im Soo-jin was the first to join. She was 29 years old, a combat engineer with skills that bordered on magic. She could take apart any machine and put it back together better than before. She had been dismissed from her previous posting for arguing too much with her superiors about equipment maintenance. They said she was difficult. Tai-Ho said she was exactly what he needed. Agent Choi Min-seo was more complicated. He was 31, a former prisoner of the Dominion who had escaped after 2 years of captivity. He knew how the enemy thought. He understood their tactics, their culture, their weaknesses. But there was a distance in his eyes that never quite went away, and sometimes Tai-Ho caught him staring at nothing, lost in memories he refused to share. Fleet intelligence did not fully trust Min-seo, but Tai-Ho did. He recognized something in the man, a kind of quiet determination that came from surviving things that should have killed you. Together, the three of them had spent 3 months tracking the Dominion's infiltration network. They had boarded 5 compromised ships, extracting corrupted AI cores before they could be destroyed. They had traced communication signals across sectors of space. They had slowly, carefully, built a picture of how the enemy was operating. And now they had found the source. Outpost Kira 7 was a remote station on the edge of human territory. It was a resupply point for patrol vessels, a place where ships stopped to refuel and restock before continuing their missions. Hundreds of vessels passed through every month. Each one received updated navigation data from the station's computers. The perfect place to spread a virus. "The code is being injected during routine data transfers," Soo-jin explained, her fingers dancing across her console. "Every ship that docks at Kira 7 gets their navigation system updated. But hidden inside those updates is the sabotage program." Tai-Ho studied the data on the screen. "How long has this been happening?" "Based on the timestamps in the code we recovered, at least 8 months. Maybe longer. 8 months. 6 ships destroyed. Thousands of lives lost. All because someone at Outpost Kira 7 had been helping the enemy. Who has access to the station's update systems? Taiho asked. Minseo answered from his seat across the small bridge. I have been studying the station's personnel files. Only 3 people have the clearance to modify navigation data. 2 of them are technicians who have been stationed there for over 10 years with perfect records. The 3rd is the station commander herself. Captain Zhang Yuri, Sujin said, pulling up a file. 42 years old. 15 years of service. Commendations for efficiency and leadership. She was promoted to station commander 3 years ago. Taiho looked at the woman's photograph. She had a kind face, the face of someone who looked like she belonged on a recruiting poster. But he had learned long ago that faces meant nothing. Good people could do terrible things when pushed hard enough. We need to get inside that station, he said. We need to confirm that she is the source. And we need to find out who she is working with in the Dominion. The plan was simple. They would arrive at Kira 7 disguised as a routine supply transport. Once inside, they would access the station's internal systems and find proof of the sabotage operation. If Captain Zhang was the traitor, they would capture her and extract whatever information she had. Simple plans were usually the best. But simple did not mean easy. The Silent Wind docked at Kira 7 without incident. Their false identification codes worked perfectly. The station's automated systems welcomed them as just another supply ship making a routine stop. Taiho led his team through the station's corridors, their civilian clothes helping them blend in with the merchants and technicians who filled the passageways. Outpost Kira 7 was busy, crowded with people from a dozen different ships. Nobody paid attention to 3 more strangers. Sujin found a maintenance access point and connected her equipment to the station's network. Within minutes, she had bypassed the security protocols and gained access to the internal communications. I found something, she whispered, her eyes widening. Encrypted transmissions going out of the station every week. The encryption matches Dominion patterns. Can you trace them? Taiho asked. Already doing it. They are coming from... She stopped. Her face went pale. From the commander's personal quarters. It was Captain Zhang. The station commander herself was the traitor. But before they could move, Minseo held up his hand. Wait, there is something else in these transmissions. They are not just orders and codes. There are personal messages. Please, someone is begging for something. Taiho felt a cold suspicion forming in his mind. Play them. The audio was distorted by encryption, but the voice was clear enough. A woman crying. Please. I did what you asked. Please let me talk to them. Just let me hear their voices. Please. Captain Zhang was not working for the Dominion by choice. They have someone, Minseo said quietly. His voice was flat, but Taiho could see the old pain in his eyes. The Dominion takes hostages. Families. Children. They use them as leverage. I have seen it before. Taiho closed his eyes for a moment. The mission had just become much more complicated. If they arrested Captain Zhang, the Dominion would kill whoever they were holding. The intelligence trail would go cold. But if they did nothing, more ships would be sabotaged. More crews would die. There was no good choice here. Only less bad ones. We need to talk to her, Taiho decided. Alone, without alerting the Dominion. Getting to Captain Zhang's quarters was not difficult. Security on the station was designed to keep outsiders away from important areas. But Sujin's skills with electronics opened every door they encountered. Within an hour, they were standing outside the commander's personal rooms. Taiho knocked. The door opened, and Captain Zhang stared at them with the exhausted eyes of someone who had not slept properly in months. Up close, she looked nothing like her official photograph. She was thinner, older. The weight of what she had been doing was crushing her from the inside. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We are from Fleet Intelligence," Taiho said. "We know what you have been doing. We know why. And we are here to offer you a choice." Fear flashed across her face. Then desperation. Then something that looked almost like relief. "My children," she said, her voice breaking. "They have my children. 2 years. They have had them for 2 years. They sent me videos every month to prove they are still alive. Every time I try to stop, they hurt them. I can hear them screaming in the recordings." Sujin looked away, her jaw tight. Minzia's expression did not change, but his hands were clenched into fists. Taiho stepped forward. "Captain Jiang, we can help you. We can get your children back. But you need to help us first." "How?" The word came out like a sob. "They will know. They always know. If I betray them, they will kill my babies." "Not if we give them what they want," Taiho said. "You are going to keep sending them information. But from now on, the information will be what we give you. False coordinates. Fake patrol routes. You will lead the Dominion into a trap. And when they come, we will be waiting." Captain Jiang stared at him. The tears were still running down her face, but behind them, something else was appearing. Hope. "And my children?" "Fleet Intelligence will send a rescue team," Taiho promised. "We know where the Dominion holds their hostages. We have agents in place. When the trap is sprung and the enemy is focused on the battle, our team will extract your family." It was a risk. Everything could go wrong. But it was also their best chance to end the infiltration and save innocent lives at the same time. Captain Jiang wiped her eyes. Her hands were still shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Tell me what to do." The Velik Nebula had not changed. The same purple and gold clouds stretched across the void, lit by the same young stars being born within. But today, the nebula was not just beautiful. Today, it was a weapon. Taiho stood on the bridge of the silent wind, watching the final pieces of the trap fall into place. For 6 weeks, Captain Jiang had fed false information to the Dominion. Patrol routes that did not exist. Convoy schedules for ships that were never coming. Each piece of fake intelligence was designed to create one irresistible target. A supply convoy carrying advanced weapons. Traveling through the Velik Nebula with minimal protection, the Dominion had taken the bait. Their spies had confirmed that a major strike force was being assembled. 15 warships, including the Throne of Silence, the enemy's flagship. The Dominion commander believed he was about to deliver a devastating blow to human supply lines. He believed his sabotage network had made victory certain. He was wrong. Hidden in the nebula's gas clouds, 40 human warships waited in silence. Their AI systems had been completely disconnected, replaced with manual controls and backup processors that the Dominion sabotage code could not touch. Every captain, every officer, every gunner had been trained in the old ways of fighting. They were ready. Admiral Shin's voice crackled through the communication system, calm and steady. "All ships, maintain position. Do not reveal yourselves until my command. The enemy fleet will arrive in approximately 15 minutes. Taiho felt the tension in the air. This was the moment everything had been building toward. Months of investigation. Weeks of preparation. Countless sleepless nights spent planning and worrying. It all came down to what happened in the next hour. Sujin was at her station, monitoring the fleet systems for any sign of infiltration. Minseo sat quietly in the corner, his eyes closed, either meditating or remembering. Taiho did not ask which. "There they are," Sujin said suddenly. Her voice was sharp with adrenaline. 15 contacts dropping out of FTL. confirmed Dominion signatures. On the display, the enemy fleet appeared like monsters emerging from a nightmare. The warships were massive, their hulls covered in weapons platforms. And at the center of the formation, the Throne of Silence loomed larger than all the others. It was the personal command ship of the Dominion spymaster, the one who had orchestrated the infiltration campaign, the same ship that held Captain Jiang's children. Taiho watched as the Dominion fleet moved deeper into the nebula, searching for the convoy that did not exist. They were exactly where the human fleet wanted them. Admiral Shin's voice returned. All ships, this is the Admiral. Power up weapons. Prepare to engage. Across the nebula, 40 human vessels came alive. Their engines flared. Their weapons powered up. They emerged from the gas clouds like ghosts becoming solid, surrounding the Dominion fleet in a perfect ring of death. The Dominion commander must have realized his mistake in that moment. His sensors would be screening warnings. His tactical officers would be reporting the impossible. A trap. A perfect trap. But it was too late to escape. All ships, fire at will, Admiral Shin commanded. The battle began. Energy beams crossed the darkness between fleets. Missiles streaked through the void, leaving trails of light behind them. The Dominion ships tried to fight back, but they were outnumbered and outpositioned. Human gunners, aiming manually with skills they had trained for months to master, found their targets with deadly accuracy. Taiho watched a Dominion destroyer explode, its hull torn apart by concentrated fire. Another ship tried to flee, only to be cut off by human cruisers moving to block its escape. The enemy formation was collapsing, but the Throne of Silence was still intact. The flagship is turning, Sujin reported. They are trying to jump to FTL. They cannot be allowed to escape, Taiho said. He looked at the tactical display, calculating distances and trajectories. If the throne gets away, we lose the spymaster. We lose the prisoners they are holding. We lose everything. He made a decision. Take us in, he ordered. Full speed toward the flagship. Sujin stared at him. Taiho, we are in a reconnaissance vessel. We have no weapons. If we get close to that ship, they will destroy us. They will be too busy to notice us, Taiho replied. The human fleet is keeping them occupied. We just need to get close enough to board. Board a Dominion flagship with 3 people? 4. Minseo had opened his eyes. There was something burning in them now, something fierce and determined. I know that ship. I was a prisoner on it for 8 months. I know its layout. I know where they keep the hostages. He stood up. I can get us inside. Taiho looked at his team. Sujin, the engineer, who had been dismissed for caring too much. Minseo, the survivor who had every reason to run from the enemy, but chose to fight instead. They were not soldiers. They were not special forces. They were just 3 people who refused to give up. Let us go save some children, Taiho said. The silent wind dove toward the Throne of Silence like a moth flying toward a flame. Around them, the battle raged. Massive ships exchanged fire. Explosions lit up the nebula. But the tiny reconnaissance vessel slipped through the chaos. Too small and too fast for the distracted Dominion gunners to target. They reached the flagship's hull and attached themselves to an emergency airlock. Minseo knew the code. The door opened. The interior of the throne was chaos. Alarms blared. Crew members ran through the corridors, trying to respond to the battle outside. Nobody expected 3 humans to be walking through their ship. Minseo led the way, navigating through passages that he had memorized during his captivity. Taiho followed with a weapon he had taken from the first Dominion soldier they encountered. Sujin brought up the rear, her engineering tools ready to open any locked doors they found. They reached the detention level without being stopped. The guards there were skeleton crew, most of the ship's personnel having been called to combat stations. It took only minutes to neutralize them. The hostage cells were exactly where Minseo remembered. And inside them, they found not just Captain Jiang's children, but over 30 other prisoners. Men, women, children. All of them had been used as leverage against someone, somewhere. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, looked up at Taiho with eyes that had seen too much. "Are you here to save us?" Taiho knelt down to her level. "Yes," he said gently. "We are going to take you home." The escape was harder than the infiltration. Dominion soldiers had finally realized something was wrong. Firefights erupted in the corridors. Taiho took a burn across his arm from an energy weapon. Sujin's equipment was damaged. Minseo fought with a cold fury that was almost frightening to witness. But they made it. They reached the Silent Wind with all 33 prisoners. They detached from the Throne of Silence just as human warships delivered the final blows that crippled the flagship's engines. Behind them, the Dominion fleet was finished. 12 ships destroyed. 3 captured, including the throne. The spymaster himself was taken alive, found cowering in his command chamber while his empire burned around him. The battle was over. The humans had won. 3 weeks later, Taiho stood on the observation deck of Starbase Prime, watching shuttles arrive and depart. The war was not over. The Dominion was still out there, but their infiltration network was destroyed. Their spymaster was in custody, revealing secrets that would protect human ships for years to come. Admiral Shin found him there, staring out at the stars. "You could have exposed Captain Jiang," she said, standing beside him. "Made an example. That is what the regulations demand for traitors." Taiho shook his head slowly. She was not a traitor. She was a mother. The Dominion made her choose between her family and her duty. That is not treason. That is torture. The Admiral nodded. "And what about you, Warrant Officer? What drove you to keep fighting when your own commander threw you aside?" Taiho considered the question for a long moment. He thought about the starfall, about Commander Junho telling him he was not needed, about the years of working in the shadows, being ignored, being overlooked. "I was not fighting for him," he finally said, "or for rank, or for recognition. I was fighting because I know what I am capable of, even if no one else does. And when the moment came, that was enough." Admiral Shin smiled. "The Navy needs more people like you, Taiho. People who do what is right because it is right, not because someone is watching." She handed him a small box. "Open it." Inside was a new rank insignia. Lieutenant Commander. "It is the first promotion from warrant officer to this rank in 20 years, the Admiral said. "You have earned it. And I have a new assignment for you. We are starting a manual combat training program, teaching the old ways to a new generation. We need someone to lead it." Taiho looked at the insignia in his hands. A year ago, he had been counting crates in a cargo bay, dismissed as useless by a commander who thought machines could replace humans. Now he was being asked to ensure that humans would never forget what they were capable of. "I would be honored," he said. On a distant station, Captain Jiang was reunited with her children. She held them for hours, crying, unable to believe they were real. She would face a review board eventually, but Admiral Shin had already made her recommendation. Mercy, understanding, a second chance. On a logistics station in a forgotten corner of space, Commander Junho received notification of his permanent reassignment. When he heard about Taiho's promotion, he said nothing. But everyone who had been on the Starfall remembered what happened. They remembered who had saved them. And they remembered who had said he was not needed. In the years that followed, Lieutenant Commander Kang Taiho trained thousands of officers in the old methods. Manual targeting, backup systems, fighting without machines. His students went on to serve throughout the fleet, carrying his lessons with them. Not because technology was bad, but because humans needed to remember what they could do without it. Because machines could be hacked, systems could be sabotaged, AI could be corrupted. But the human spirit, the determination to survive, the refusal to give up even when everything seemed lost, that could never be taken away. And that was what made humanity worth fighting for.